Chapter 35. I didn't dump Richard. I believe in formal argument, chances, and choices. If things didn't change between Richard and I, he would have to go. The lifestyle my children and I had been living was not healthy. It needed a change, and either Richard and I needed to change the relationship or we needed to end the relationship. Either way, the relationship we currently had was over. Richard made it clear that he would sooner get a divorce than seek marriage counseling, which meant marriage counseling was out of the question. I didn't have a problem with this. I had mastered formal argument, and my years with Scott had trained me to shut down my emotions on a dime. So that is what I did. I shelved my emotions, shut down, entered into a state of reasoning and formal argument, and proceeded with the longest 3 weeks of my life. Every night, Richard and I debated. I acted as a referee while we argued and counted our arguments. You shouldn't be your own referee, but I had a husband who refused counseling. My rules were simple. If he broke the rules, I terminated the conversation for the night, and we would pick it up the next day. Rule number 1 of formal argument. There can be no name calling. I would not condone the character assassination of which Richard was very fond of. Rule number 2. Assumptions and accusations were banned. We were allowed to cite an incident and reflect on our feelings. We were not allowed to accuse and attack defensively. And rule number 3. We had to stay on topic. This was by far the hardest part of spousal argument, differentiating between a legitimate problem or a petty symptom, and doing so objectively. I made it clear to him that my intentions were, that I was considering ending the relationship, and that even if we stayed together, there would be significant change to make us work, that what we had was unacceptable. He wanted to talk about Hosea. Hosea was a grad student who lived in Boston, where he was working on his master's degree and aimed to enter the PhD program for organic chemistry in 6 months. Hosea had no idea what problems were going on in my marriage, nor had we ever discussed a relationship outside of confirming we weren't going to have one. My decision was based solely on how Richard had behaved over the last 7 years. My final decision would be based solely on how Richard would behave over this argument. For the next month, every night, we argued formally, keeping to my rules best as we could. After 1 week, things went south. The debates began earlier and earlier in the day, and in the fit of one of our fights, Richard grabbed my computer's tower and began pulling out the wires. My book, my precious book. All 150,000 words were currently tucked away on that hard drive, and he was walking out the door with the only copy. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I'm taking the computer. I'm going to smash it." Everything in me shut down. Cold, stark panic set in. I balled my fist and punched him in the face. I felt my thumb pop against his cheekbone, but he had dropped my computer and stumbled back. I stood there, a little 4'11" raging self, and I seethed. The only thought on my mind was Ian and my precious book. And I would be damned if Richard took that from me. He grabbed his keys and ran out the door. I inspected my thumb. I had clearly dislocated it. It swelled and hurt like a bitch. I didn't care. I had my book. Richard came home a few hours later after he had cooled off. He approached me right away with a new plan. "I was doing some thinking, and I want you to talk to your doctor about increasing the dosage on your medication." "What?" I said. "Something's off these past few weeks, and I'm not taking my medication," I said. He had a face like I'd punched him again. "What?" he growled. "I stopped taking my meds." "You... when? No wonder why you're acting like a psycho bitch." "I am not a psycho bitch," I said. "I took myself off the meds months ago." "Yeah? And you've been acting like a crazy bitch since then." "You left! You weren't here for 3 months, and I was off the meds long before then." He didn't know what to say, so he stood dumbfounded for that moment. "Off your fucking meds. No wonder you hit me," he grumbled. "I hit you because you were trying to take my computer," I shouted. "My book is on that computer. Why the frick did you think you could just take it? Your father told me I should. It was his idea." "Yeah, my father would," I said. My father who never loved me a day in his life. My father who had no concept but to control others. My father who Richard believed was the best person to give advice on handling me. Handling me. I am a woman who is not handled. Of all people, my father wouldn't know this. I remember the deterioration, and the one final moment later that week had changed everything. It was the moment I decided to give up on Richard, when I put my foot down and said, I'm done. For Scott, it was the day he slapped me. For Richard, it was this day. We were arguing again. It was a calm argument, and I will be honest, I don't know what I said. I know I was giving him my views on marriage and relationships. I know I was not talking about Hosea. Whatever I said enraged him. He looked at me with such hate that he took me and threw me down on the bed. I felt him holding me there with his body, holding me by the wrists, and he shoved his face in mine and screamed, "Cunt! Cunt! Cunt!" When he released me, I scrambled to the opposite side of the bed and yanked my wedding ring off from my finger, and I threw it at him. We were done. It was over. I will not keep a husband who has ever used that word on me. No husband of mine will ever call me that. Granted, I've called him names, and he has called me names, but this? A person is not defined by their choices when the world is right, but by their choices when the world goes wrong. We remember Hitler, Stalin, and Christopher Reeves, all at their worst. And which of those men do you respect? This philosophy would go on to shape me so much about me. I think this is what Richard taught me. Sean taught me to fight. Besant taught me standards. Joe taught me endurance. Scott taught me to persevere and keep a cool head. Richard taught me how to own my own choices, good or bad. What I saw was a man who refused to take his children to the emergency room if needed because it inconvenienced him. What I saw was a man who refused to get his wife the medical attention she needed because it annoyed him. A man who scolded his wife for being sick. I saw a man who drove himself insane, mad with insecurity and jealousy until he saw problems that weren't there. I would no longer involve myself with this man. I was done. I was tired. He severed the last of my love when he called me cunt. I let him know all of this. There were no lies, no secrets. I spelled out every emotion I had through every step of this process the moment that I had it, and he still insisted I lied. I told him the exact moment I was done with the marriage. I still didn't leave him. He asked to keep trying, and I said, yes, we can still talk, and we did. 2 weeks before Christmas, Richard developed a strong belief that if he could sleep, then I should sleep. The first day I was tired. The second day I was beat. The third day I was beyond drugged and incoherent. The fourth day I fell asleep in the middle of my sentence, and it took him 10 minutes to wake me up again. Elizabeth! Wait, what? I said as if nothing had happened. You fell asleep. No, I didn't. Yes, you did, he said. You were in the middle of a sentence when you passed out. I thought for a long moment and remembered, and yes, I had literally been in the middle of a sentence. What were you saying? He asked. What? I had no idea what he was talking about. Finish the sentence! That is why he woke me? So I could finish my damn sentence? I was so tired I couldn't even recall the topic, and he was oblivious to my exhaustion. Never mind, he said. He stood from the bed and sighed. You know what? I think I'm going to go move in with my mother. What? I slurred and forced back a large smile. I get to sleep? Okay, I said. Inside, I was smiling. I was finally going to be allowed sleep. I couldn't wait. I slept for 3 days. I woke up once to find Richard standing over me. He had covered my body with roses. I took the house key from him that day and told him not to come in while I was sleeping. He left and I went back to sleep. I slept for another 2 days. When I woke up, I was refreshed, my head was clear, and I could think. I told him not to come back.